Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to your November 2018 Astro Update. It's Raina here, and boy, November is a really important month. And yes, it's at the end of 2018, but there are lots of things happening, especially turning points, because we have the North Node going from Leo to Cancer, and Cancer is a fellow water sign. So it's forming a trine with you. And I should say that this reading is for Sun in Scorpio as well as Scorpio rising. But it is a general forecast because of the nature of individual Scorpio Sun and Scorpio rising people in terms of the degree of your Sun and rising signs. So if you'd like a private reading that really is geared for you personally, please check out the link to my 2 natal chart readings, and I'm going to be putting them below this video. So the month begins with the Sun in your sign, and this is your solar return. Most of you will have your birthday in November. Happy birthday to all Scorpios, because I know that a lot of people will probably be listening to this in October. And those of you in October have your birthday, your solar return to look forward to as well. But this is all about November, and the Sun is in that first house of the self until the 22nd. So the Sun in your sign, the Sun in the first house, gives a sense of vitality. The Sun is life-giving. So it only stands to reason that you may feel more energetic. You may feel more positive because the Sun, we think of sunny disposition because the Sun represents positivity. And you just may be brimming with creative ideas. Maybe you are concerned about yourself for some reason, your body, the image that you project with the Sun in this house. And you may be getting attention from others with the Sun in this house. And this could be in any area of your life. I mean, this could be in your private life with a romantic partner, or in terms of some recognition of something that you've accomplished. On the 6th, Uranus, which is retrograding, goes back into Aries. And for you, this is the 6th house, which is the work house. And so you had a 7-year cycle of Uranus in this sector. And for Scorpio, you may have been having a lot of kind of twists and turns when it comes to like the type of jobs that you were doing. Maybe you didn't have stability with your work life for the last 7 years, and you're going to have a little bit more of that. But sometimes this can just be like the type of work that you're doing, going back to a kind of some unusual type of employment. Maybe it's like even the hours are strange and kind of unpredictable. So retail is a job. I had a job like that where you never knew from week to week what kind of schedule you would have. And it's funny because I loved having that type of a schedule. And I'm a Sun in Sagittarius, and I had a coworker who I really got along with, and she was a Scorpio, and she couldn't stand it. And I think because she was a fixed sign, she wanted a stable like 9 to 5 schedule. And I loved having like, okay, you're going to work 12 to 8 or 4 to 8 or, 9 to 2 or something like that. I liked that. And so you may have been dealing with that type of a schedule, and perhaps depending on, various factors, I don't know if you have enjoyed it, but it could be like maybe being a floater type of a job where and I think this is a lot of times in retail also, where you might work in different stores of the same chain. And maybe you just have a bunch of part-time jobs and you kind of don't have a very predictable schedule. And this is going back to that for some reason. And of course, we are getting into the holiday season where some people have seasonal work. Maybe you're working for Amazon, I don't know, and you're doing seasonal work for them. But in any case, this is going to be temporary because Uranus has recently gone into your opposite sign, Taurus. And so that's affecting your marriage sector, your committed partnership sector. And now it has taken a hiatus, going back to old ground again for several months into 2019. And I'll get to it going back into your 7th house when the time comes. Also, the 6th house is a house of health. So this can be a time when you may go back to methods of healing that are a little bit outside the mainstream. And this could also include energy healing, which Uranus is associated with kind of like that type of alternative ways of doing things. And that might be something that you revisit. Even your daily routine, I think this is a big part of the 6th house as well, is like how you organize your life via your daily schedule. So you may have a kind of a quirky schedule for the time being. Now, obviously, this could relate to your job or jobs and having to kind of cobble together a workable routine. And then on the 7th, this is one of the important shifts, the North Node into Cancer. So the North Node goes backwards in its transit. It's like a retrograde, but it's actually that's the way that it travels. And it has been in Leo, which is your 10th house of career. So I want you to reflect, Scorpio. Have you had certain brushes with destiny in the last 18 months in terms of like opportunities that have arisen that seemingly came out of nowhere? Maybe they were, you saw them as lucky breaks or serendipitous situations. And that is the North Node in your 10th house. Maybe you found yourself and found what you were meant to do, your calling. And I could see that with the 6th house and the 10th house. Especially if, with the 10th house, especially if it has given you some recognition and maybe you fell into it in a happenstance kind of way, but it took off right away. I think sometimes when we're talking about the 10th house, it is like your place in the world. So you may have felt like you found your place. And really, this is not dependent on your age. You may be in your middle age period where you thought that you were going to do one thing until you retired and you just kind of took a left turn because of opportunities that came your way. Now you have the North Node going into Cancer, and that's your 9th house. And this is a friendly angle. This is a trine. So the blessings can flow even more easily. But maybe blessings isn't the right word. Maybe destiny is more appropriate. All I know is that just as there is the North Node transiting, there's a South Node. And the South Node is going to be in the opposite sign in the opposite house. And the South Node is your karmic past. And so you have this polarizing kind of seesaw that you have to find integration and balance. And so this is involving the ninth house, where you're supposed to kind of emphasize right now and de-emphasize the third house, which will have it in the sign of Capricorn, your karmic past. And this involves kind of the bigger picture when the North Node is in Cancer. Scorpio, especially if you have Mercury in Scorpio, and I need to do a series on all of the signs, Mercury in all the signs, because somebody wrote to me and said, when are you going to do Mercury in the signs? And I kind of didn't think that many people would be interested in that, but I should do that at some point. But you know, chances are you will have Mercury in the same sign as your sun, because Mercury is very close to the sun. But not every Scorpio does. If you also have Mercury in Scorpio, you may be especially rigid when it comes to your belief system. And so it can be very hard for you to kind of entertain new ideas when you have made up your mind about something. Mercury rules the third house of communication and the sixth house of health and work. And so because you have the South Node in that third house, and it has to do with teaching and learning, you may have some very kind of ideas that you've clung to that may not be appropriate anymore. And you may have to kind of like think bigger picture, think more spiritual than intellectual, or spiritually instead of intellectually, and things of that nature. Because the ninth house is about expansion, okay? It's the house that Jupiter rules. And so it's about expansion in terms of geography. So the third house is your local area. And because you have the South Node transiting through this third house, the universe is nudging you to kind of, spread your wings. And this could even involve traveling to other countries, okay, Scorpio? And obviously the other factors would have to kind of agree with that in order for that to happen. But if you get those opportunities, and you might, because as I said, this could be your destiny at this time in the next 18 months to make certain long distance trips. And these can really change your life. These can be a blessing to you and to be like a turning point. And when we do certain things, other things can come in for us. So for instance, if you're a single Scorpio, you never know if you take a trip, if you meet your soulmate. That's the point. Or if you get your dream job. And it's not something that you may have like left the country with the hopes of doing, but it's that serendipity where it happens when you least expect it. So this can also involve taking courses at a university. And maybe you swore up and down that you would never go back to college. And then an opportunity presents itself, or there's something specific that you want to do that requires that piece of paper, and you decide to go, and the universe opens a door for you, a pathway, presents itself. And then all the other things start to happen, as I said before, like it just like kind of like a an avalanche of opportunities presents itself because it was part of your destiny, your blueprint in this lifetime. And, talking about your karmic past, maybe you got some kind of certification. And let's say, for instance, you got some kind of certificate to fix cars. I can't think of anything, so I said that. And along the way, you realize that you would love to be a teacher and do this for other people because you think you'd be good at it. Maybe you want to teach it at the high school level or the college level, whatever. And you find out that you need a bachelor's degree or you need a master's degree in order to do that. So you realize you're going to have to go and get that university training. And maybe you thought that was something that you didn't want to do, and now you're ambitious to do it. So whatever. I mean, all of these things could come into play. The ninth house is also the God house. So there is this spiritual component to it for sure. And this could involve like maybe going into divinity school, maybe becoming a yoga teacher. And the foreign travels angle could be getting your certification in a foreign country. That is so hot nowadays, is to go for a month to Bali or some other exotic locale and get an intensive training. And so you go to this beautiful tropical environment and you get certified after 1 month, and then at the same time you get to enjoy this beautiful place. But one thing that I wanted to impress upon you is the fact that the North Node is in a fellow water sign. This could be a very good time period for Scorpios. And the same day that the North Node goes into this water sign of Cancer, you have your new moon. So again, I'm talking about turning points. This is wonderful. And maybe this is some kind of omen, positive omen, that this is going to be your year, even though we're in 2018, carrying into 2019. And so the new moon is in your sign in the first house of the self. Make your new moon intentions for the next 12 months of what you would like to accomplish, and plant those seeds of intention. And the very next day, Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, the sign that it rules, auspicious in and of itself, and it goes into your money house, second house of earned income. Well, there are two. You actually rule the other money house, the opposing house, the eighth house of other people's money. But we're talking about the money that you earn, and you've got Jupiter there, baby. So enjoy the expansion of income streams, the good luck that Jupiter represents in its own sign. Hello, are you kidding me? So enough said about that. And then Mars goes into Pisces on the 15th, another water sign. But let me just get back to Jupiter and Sagittarius. I'm not really getting too far into that because I actually have a video on what that means for you. And you can check my channel if you haven't watched it already. You can just look for Jupiter and Sagittarius for your sun sign or your rising sign. It'll be, for Scorpio, obviously. But the one thing that I wanted to state about that is that this is going to be like a 13-month transit. So it's not leaving there for a long time. And then on the 15th, you have Mars into a fellow water sign, Pisces. This time it's in your 5th house of love, okay? Now, Mars is part of that divine lovers duo, but Mars is the lusty side of things. Mars is the sex drive, and the 5th house can be recreational sex. By the way, I once had this debate with somebody about the 5th house versus the 8th house, because for me, the sex house was always the 8th house. And that is your house again that we're talking about. But that is spiritual sex. The 5th house is fun sex, entertainment sex. But Scorpio doesn't really like to do that much, I don't think. So you might be interested in the other activities that represent the 5th house, which is creativity in general. So it could be conceiving a child. So maybe you're having sex with the intention, the very conscious intention of trying to plant a seed of a child. And you're trying very hard for that, perhaps. And the 5th house is the house of pleasure. So you may just be more active in doing things that make you smile, that are fun to you. And this could include parties. This could include going to concerts and plays, because the 5th house is a house of entertainment, the house of creativity. So if you are artistic, you may be driven to create. And like I said, it's also creating life. But it's for people that are single Scorpios, this could be a time where you are pursuing someone very actively, and or just dating in a very lively sort of way, maybe more than one person, but there's a lot of activity in that sector. So Venus goes direct the very next day in Libra in the 12th house on the 16th. And that's very interesting as well, because Venus in November goes into that 12th house. And you know, so you have like a twofer where you have Venus retrograding, which in and of itself can mean that somebody from your past comes back into your life. But then you also have it in the 12th house, which is the house of past lives. So that can be some kind of a karmic romantic situation. And perhaps that is something that comes about in November as well. I didn't bring it up at the beginning, but this is something that is coming into your reality starting on the first day of the month, which is kind of interesting to me, almost like symbolic or a good omen as well. November 1st is when Venus goes to that 29 degree of Libra. And when Venus turns direct on the 16th, it will be at 25 degrees of Libra in that 12th house. So you have a period of time of just over 2 weeks of Venus in the 12th house, and that might increase the likelihood of even meeting somebody for the first time in this lifetime who has that karmic feel to him or her. And then Venus goes direct, and it has done its job, whatever that was in your particular instance, in your particular case. And you know, one thing it could have been about in that 12th house, if it didn't have to do with meeting or reuniting with a soulmate, is kind of like asking you to explore the issue of soulmate. Is that something that appeals to you as a Scorpio? I think so, because the house that you rule, the 8th house, is about intimacy on a soul level. And, you know, contrast it with the seventh house that Libra rules, Venus rules. That is the marriage, okay? The commitment. Well, commitment can be superficial. You can buy a ring, you can sign a document, but does that really mean that you are bonded to a person? You bond to a person through deep feeling, not through the outer trappings of legalities or symbols like a ring. And so the 8th house that you rule is a water house. The 12th house that Pisces rules is a water house. And you have this transit of Venus going back into that 12th house and making you think about things on that level. And then it goes direct. On the same day that Venus goes direct, Mercury goes retrograde. And this is in the 2nd house of earned income, where you have Jupiter. So thank God you have Jupiter there, because there could be some snafus with money. If you're getting a check, if somebody tells you the check is in the mail, it may be at the dead letter office for a few weeks until Mercury goes direct. So just chill. If you notice that there are snafus with money or some kind of slowdown with your income, this too shall pass. It's a very quick transit of 3.5 weeks. And don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Actually, what's going to happen is that Mercury is going to go direct on, I believe it's December 6th, and then you have a new moon on December 7th in that house of earned income with Jupiter there too. So that'll be nice. That's a nice thing to look forward to. On the 22nd, we have a full moon in Gemini. This is your 8th house of other people's money, the house that you rule. So this could be a situation if you have any kind of legal battles with wills. This is the house of inheritances. Either you may become aware of an inheritance issue, or you are resolving it. It comes to a head, something along those lines. And that could, bring money coming from another person. Maybe a loan goes through that you had been wanting. This could be a situation of some sort of detox that you're going through, because the 8th house can be a house of transformation, and the full moon is a time of purification. So you may be doing some kind of transformation. It could be as simple as wanting to purge yourself of something that doesn't seem like it belongs in your life anymore. And on the 24th, Neptune goes direct in your 5th house, where you also have Mars. So Neptune was retrograding in this 5th house, and there may have been this feeling of painful realization in the last, I can't remember when it went retrograde, but I think it was in June or something. But there might have been something that felt very harsh, where you realize something about your love life, about a person you were dating, and it may have been quite, I don't know if traumatic is, maybe that's too strong a word, but it might have just been a person that you were seeing that you realized was deceiving you in some way? Because when Neptune is transiting in your 5th house, and this is a long-term transit, you may come across more than one person who pulls the wool over your eyes. And now that Neptune is direct, you can expect that you're back to La La Land. But that's okay, because Neptune can have a very mystical effect, again, with soulmates, where maybe you were getting very pragmatic for a while and you were seeing things so, how can I put, realistically. But this isn't really what this transit is all about. This transit is very fanciful. And so perhaps you even had a creative block in the last, I don't know, I'm just going to guess and say 5 months or so, or 4 months, however long it's been in that 5th house. And now the creative juices are flowing, and you feel like you can dream again in terms of new ideas for creative projects. And if you are looking for a love partner, you do have like a lot of easy flow from the 1st house to the 5th house, the 1st house of the self to the 5th house of romance, and also to that 9th house where the North Node is transiting. So I really like these trines to you right now, Scorpio, because they're affecting, you know, your spiritual life as well as your romantic life. And again, talking about soulmates, that certainly could all be connected, you know, like a grand trine effect. But of course, you know, I'm talking about it in a very loose terms, because the degrees are going to be different. The North Node is at a very late degree of Cancer, and I don't know, I think Neptune is at 13 degrees of Pisces or something, so very far apart in that sense. But anyway, very dreamy energy for soulmate, for romantic activities in general, or for any kind of creativity that comes about in your life. Okay, I usually don't do astrological forecasts that are this long, but it's a birthday present for you, Scorpio. And like I said earlier, if you would like me to do your natal chart, I would be honored, and I'm providing the links below. Happy birthday, and good luck to you. Take care. Bye.